Hey guys, my name's Alicia, and today I want to talk to you guys about Strange the Dreamer. So I know I'm pretty late to the party with this book, but I just came across it, and it is probably my favorite YA fantasy now. It is so amazing, so beautiful, and let's get into it. So this story follows Lazlo Strange, who is an orphan librarian, and his lifelong mission is to go find the city of Weep. So this city is the unseen city, and nobody's been able to find it for years. And the name of the city has kind of disappeared from people's memories, but Lazlo remembers that this city had a name before, and so he's very just for his whole life he's been trying to find what happened to the city and its name and the mysteries behind it. And then we also have a second perspective of a girl named Sarai, and so she is in the city of Weep. And so this story kind of follows both these characters and both their lives and how they kind of intersect with each other. So I'm going to start with talking about the world building. So I thought this book just had an amazing plot, and the world and everything was so new and different. So I haven't really seen or read anything like this before. And so Laini Taylor, this is the first Laini Taylor that I've ever read, and she just, I think the way she kind of writes her stories and her world building itself is just unbelievable. And I know a lot of people have kind of, I don't want to say criticized, but there's been kind of ups and downs of whether people like this book or they don't based on the writing. And for me personally, this kind of writing is definitely my go-to. I love the kind of detailed, intricate, just beautiful writing style that they have. And this book definitely goes into a lot of detail, a lot of imagery, so that was beautiful for me. I know also it can feel a little slow and maybe a little too much detail at times. Again, for me, I definitely do like that kind of detail. I do like getting just all those similes and metaphors and detailed writing. I think it definitely adds to the story. But I can totally understand if that's not your style, that's not your thing. You might not love this book, but I think the way that Laini Taylor just she even had a kind of quote in this book about Lazlo talking about the language of Weep and how it kind of felt like calligraphy and just that beautiful kind of flowy writing. And that's honestly what I felt that this story was like. It felt like calligraphy. And I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, and maybe if you read the book you get what I'm talking about, but it just feels like it's just so beautiful and so mesmerizing and so just you're in this world. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was just beautiful writing, beautiful world building, even just the ideas of what this world is and how the magic works, and who these the villains and the good guys are, and how that all ties in together. So as for the plot and the pacing of the story, I can definitely see how people might think that it was very up and down and kind of fast-paced, and then also kind of slow-paced at times. But for me, I personally like that. I think it definitely added to the story, and it made it more fun to follow along to. I kind of felt like it was a roller coaster, so you were kind of, learning more about the character and about the world and about the plot and everything, and then you kind of got to this point where suddenly there was a plot twist, or there was other mysteries to solve, or other questions being asked, and then you kind of felt like you were going down again. So there was definitely a lot of kind of character building and growth and things like that. So it wasn't kind of super action-packed or anything like that at the start. And then at certain times it felt like a lot of action and a lot of things were happening. So I personally love that. I think it definitely made the story more fun to read and just more entertaining. But I can see how people might not have loved that or been super happy about that. So now getting into the characters, Lazlo Strange is our main character, and he is just a sweet cinnamon roll. He is so just sweet and amazing and wanting to help people and seeing the good in everything. And I definitely think you don't find characters like that often. And I definitely haven't read or even, watched characters like that super often. So it was definitely a nice change, I felt. And then just his idea of life and about, being a dreamer, as the name suggests, his whole kind of ideas and stuff come from his imagination and from his love and beauty in life and of everyone. And that was really cool and fun to read, a different kind of character and perspective to see. And then on the other side, we had Sarai, who I don't want to give too much away, but she definitely, in a way, was kind of the opposite of that. So she's been through a lot, as has Lazlo, but she's definitely been through a lot in her life that kind of has hardened her and has made her not super optimistic about things. And you definitely see that in her journey and in her thoughts and in her abilities and skills and things like that. But I think what I loved about Sarai was that even though she has a lot of reason not to, let's say, trust or help people, or which side she chooses and things like that, she still has this kind of innocent wonder and like sees the beauty just as Lazlo does in her own way and in a different way than Lazlo. But it's still like really amazing to kind of see these characters be put against each other and work with each other, and how that dynamic is. So that was really fun. And then I, again, don't want to get too much into the plot itself, but one character that I'm sure people who have read this book can know who I'm talking about. But Minya, who is that character, she is comes a little later in the story, and we definitely understand more about her as it goes on. And you could say she's the villain of the story, and I definitely agree with that to an extent. But I would just like to say that I definitely understand her perspective, and I understand where she's coming from and kind of why she chooses to do the things that she does. I'm not saying they're okay or that it's the right thing to do, but you definitely, at least I definitely, felt for her and could appreciate her perspective, even though it wasn't the best, but And lastly, I just want to get into the themes of this book, which I thought were very really nicely just put into the story without being overtly in your face about what, like, I guess the message I felt the book was trying to give was. So I would like to just say that there's definitely a couple trigger warnings in this book. So there are mentions of abuse, specifically parental abuse, as well as sexual assault and rape. It's not like detailed or like specifically shown in the book, but it's definitely mentioned. But due to those kind of heavy topics, this book really touched on a lot of intense themes and messages, and I definitely thought that it did it in a really beautiful and nuanced way. So a couple of them, again, I don't want to get too much into spoilers or anything, but there's definitely themes of kind of PTSD and generational trauma. And I thought that given the characters and everything they've been through, and this is a YA book, so I don't think it definitely like went too deep into anything, but it just was beautiful to see how these characters kind of coped with things that had been done in the past to either them or by their ancestors. So Sarai, for example, her parents and her kin, let's say, are not great people and they didn't do good things. And just kind of the burden that put onto Sarai and how the trauma of what her parents did to people, how that affects her, even though she wasn't the one being directly affected by the people doing the bad things, if that makes sense. But it definitely, and again, I'm trying hard not to go into spoilers here, but I think Minya, who was technically kind of the antagonist of the story and the villain, again, you can see the different ways that, let's say, that trauma has affected Sarai and then also Minya, and how it's kind of changed their outlook and perspective on the world and of the things that have been done. And then on the other side, a character named Errol Fane, who, not going into too much, but has also done bad things, but had bad things done to him, and how that's affected him and kind of motivated him and pushed him into his purpose and his goals in life. So there's definitely a lot of like seeing different perspectives and seeing different issues from different people, and I thought that was really, really well done. So another message in the book, another theme, was kind of acceptance and lack of acceptance. And so I thought the book did a really great job of talking about these subjects without being too heavy and like too in your face again. But that definitely was seen because, not going into too many spoilers, but some of the characters look different than other people. And so there was definitely a underlying theme of racism and discrimination and how that affects people and what that can kind of put inside of people's heads and how they deal with that. And I think in its own way, because it's definitely like not racism as we see it in the world, which unfortunately is quite a prominent subject today, but it definitely kind of showed how not being accepted by people can affect you and can hurt you and can force you to do things that you might not have wanted to do or not have thought were necessary before that. And then lastly, another great theme that I thought was the kind of juxtaposition of evil and good, because this story definitely delved into the idea that just your like quote unquote bad guy isn't always the bad guy. You got to see things from their perspective, and just like that, the good guy may not have always been good or may not have done good things to get to where they are, but that doesn't mean, you know, that redemption isn't possible or their goals aren't right. It might just be how they're doing them. So yeah, a lot of great themes in this book, and for a YA fantasy, it definitely like impressed me just by those themes, to be honest. So again, as you can tell, I really love this story, and no one's surprised, I definitely gave it a 5 out of 5. And it, for me at least, I know it's not like universally loved, it's not a unanimous thing, but it definitely had all the great qualities of an amazing book and just a great time. The writing was superb and beautiful, the characters were complex, and each of them were different and had their own storyline and plot that like progressed the story itself, and you saw a lot of like character growth and beautiful moments and things like that. I would like to touch on just one thing, was the love story, and I know people hate an insta love, and I think this love story could be classified as an insta love story, but for me, like, that wasn't an issue. I definitely thought that like the two characters, you know, their whole journey on their own brought them together, and so when they did have that romance start, it didn't really feel forced or it didn't feel unnatural. I thought it felt very just, you know, a part of their characters and a part of the story. So I definitely love that, and I thought there were some great super romantic and cute moments between them. So I loved it. And again, yeah, lastly, the themes were just amazing, done in such a beautiful and nuanced way. So that as well was a great part of the story. And if you haven't picked this book up, you definitely need to. Again, I know I'm late to the party here, but it was definitely so far one of my favorite YA fantasies of all time. So tell me what you guys thought about this story. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like the certain parts? Did you not like them? I would love to hear what everyone else thinks. Do you agree that it's the best YA fantasy of all time? Let me know. Thank you everyone for coming to my channel and checking out this video. Hope to see you guys again.